We're good? Okay. So we are continuing in our daily study. Our daily study is the Chafetz Haim, a page a day. We're going to be adding one book today, which is called Mikdash Me'at, on the sanctity of the synagogue. Then we'll continue in our Gemara. And then, B'ezrat Hashem, after Yom Kippur, B'siyata Dishmaya, we're going to add a third daily book on Shemirat Einayim. And the focus on our group that we're putting together here in Surfside is Kiddusha. That's our focus. So we're focused on Kiddushat Einayim, Kiddushat Oznaim, Kiddushat Hapeh. So we started with Kiddushat Hapeh, with Lashon Hara, knowing the halachot, what to say, what not to say. We're going to go to Kiddushat Einayim, of what to look at. And there's a whole book. I have two books that we're going to be reading from on Shemirat Einayim, like a page a day on each one. What's interesting is I explained to Ariel, and I told them that the book actually has tactics. You know, everyone says, okay, watch your eyes. Okay, that alone is not in and of itself any advice. It's just telling me what you need to do. This book is actually tactics. I read the first few pages. It gave a very good tactic. I tried it. It works. And so from there, I understood that the book has a chokhmah of how to succeed at this. And it's a desire that exists in males. It's a normal desire. Hashem created, but Hashem also created the ability to control it. And so we're going to focus on how best to control it, especially living here in Surfside, in Miami, or anywhere for that matter. So let's go to the Chafetz Haim a day. Let's begin. So it's his third day. We did this yesterday. We're going to review it. He says that the Torah strictly forbids Lashon Hara. Why? Because by speaking against other Jewish people in a derogatory way, that's not permitted. Because some ways we're going to see, sometimes you could speak about some things that are controversial, but they're allowed. But he says, but by doing that in the wrong way, what you're really doing is you're really fueling the Satan to speak against Am Yisrael. Because the Satan can't open his mouth unless something on this earth, someone's doing that. They say, the Eila or the Tata. The Eila is up there, Tata is down. That's in Aramite. The Eila is up, the Tata is down. That the thing's up only can get triggered if someone does something down here. So the Satan has no power. If people come in and they're just respectful of each other and all have ahavat chinam, don't talk about anyone, he has no power. The moment you start talking about each other, he starts to talk also. And he says, I don't need anyone to shut me up now because you guys are talking about each other, so don't tell me not to do what you guys are doing. So by working on this, you're actually preventing the Satan from speaking about you. In any way, so it's a good. That's one brought down here. The next thing, he says that the Lashon Hara is so destructive that when a person sullies his mouth with speaking the wrong and forbidden speeches, it prevents his holy words from going to heaven. So that's another issue. That if a person is going to be speaking Lashon Hara or using words that are improper, like curse words, or what they say, swear words, or things like that, or they say cussing. There's all different terms of how they say. What that does is it ruins his mouth when he wants to pray. So now the same mouth that he's using for that is going to go and ask God, please give me this or do this for me. It doesn't work. That same tool was already ruined to use for beneficial purposes. So he says that's another problem with Lashon Hara. He's like, if you want to be that person that when he prays he gets answered and have that success, then you got to watch what you're speaking. Nobody can keep Hilchot Lashon Hara unless he learns Hilchot Lashon Hara. It's like keeping Hilchot. It's like keeping Shabbat. It's like a guy who never kept Shabbat in his life. Suddenly he says, I want to keep Shabbat. So he turns his phone off, and that's what he knows, not to use his phone, not to drive the car. But that's not Hilchot Shabbat. The moment he starts to learn Hilchot Shabbat, he's going to have to make teshuvah. And I don't believe that I couldn't do all this. Hilchot Shabbat is detailed. So a person can't keep Shabbat unless he learns Hilchot Shabbat. He can't keep Hilchot Lashon Hara unless he learns it. And if a person is in his 20s, 30s, after school, and he didn't learn it, today there's no excuse that, there's enough books that are written in English and they're so simple and easy that you can just take it and read it and improve your life. He says here, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai taught that even though Miriam was punished for speaking, Miriam was punished for speaking Lashon Hara on Moshe, she in essence didn't do anything really wrong in the sense of what she was initially doing. What she said in the case of Miriam, according to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that she was saying on Moshe that I am a prophetess, Miriam, so was Aharon, and so was Moshe. if Moshe left his wife in order to focus on this prophecy and on God, is that something that we should be doing too? She never had any bad intentions. Moshe wasn't offended. Nothing went wrong here, other than Hashem not wanting to have lashon hara. And because of it, Miriam got punished. And I told you yesterday, don't underestimate what this is. Miriam Neviah was, the Gedolat Hador. She was the lady of the generation. Suddenly, everyone was like, well, why are we not going anywhere? The Gedolet of the door, she spoke Lashon Hara, in a sense, Has v'Shalom, that we have to say it this way. So we have to wait for her. And suddenly you have 600,000 men, maybe 3 million people total with women and children, all waiting for the most important lady in the entire congregation that she spoke Lashon Hara. And besides that, it was a bizayon gadol, that it told everyone that it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're in the leadership category. It doesn't matter if you're a teacher. It doesn't matter if you're the most important lady in the entire congregation. If this is the avon, the person has to be separated, has to go through the process of cleansing and then come back. And he says here, what's interesting is that Miriam never had a bad intention. Her intention was always good, and she never meant harm. And look what happened. And look at her level. And look, her brother wasn't offended. Moshe was anab. He didn't even care about it. And all the more so, there was a punishment. Could you imagine an individual who actually speaks about somebody with intention to speak bad and to have harm? Here, she didn't expect that, and look what happened. So that's today's lesson on Ilchot Lashon Hara of the Chafetz Haim. So we started this new book called Mikdash Me'at. It's right there. You see on the other side, it says Kiddushat Bet HaKnesset. Where did this book come from? I actually don't even know. I was in Hechal Shalom, over here in Surfside. They have an unbelievable library, so I always go through the books. The rabbi there is a Talmid Hacham. He always brings in new Sfarim, which I love, and all new stuff. And I found this little tiny mini book on the side, and I looked inside. It had a stamp. It said Rabbi S.Y. Gross. I don't know who that is, but he seems to have left it in there, in the shul. And when you look at the first page, it says, Hareshut biyad kol echad lahatikam lahadbisam hafisam bechol ketzot tevel. It says in there, you can take this book, copy it, read it, learn it, teach it. It's for Zikuy Rabim. It's written in memory of Harav Gaon Rabbi Yitzchak Hoffman, Zecher Sadik Livnacha, and it was translated by Sarah Hoffman Ludmir of Brooklyn, New York. This book looks like it must be at least 30 years old, the print of it. And I'll just read from the beginning. It says, Sefer Mikdash Me'at. Mikdash Me'at is a Bet Knesset. Like there's a Bet HaMikdash and then there's a middle Mikdash Me'at, that's a Bet Knesset. It says, on the sanctity of the synagogue, including everything pertaining to the laxity on responding Amen Yeheh Shemei Rabbah. So the book is talking about how to answer Amen Yeheh Shemei Rabbah, and a guide to parents and educators and other community leaders using examples from the Talmud and other Midrashei Chazal to prove the importance of involvement and influence of the community leaders, educators, and parents in this issue. It's from the World Society for the Sanctity of the Synagogue and Answering Amen. So I read most of the book. This is not for the faint-hearted. I'm reading this book, no strings attached, which means I'm going to give you sources and things in this book that's going to grow hair on your heads. It's something that's chilling.
White hairs?
I hope not white hairs, but there's chilling stuff in this book. And again, we're coming here to learn from the sources, the way it's written, in order to fine-tune ourselves. There's no filters in the Torah that we're going to be teaching. So what I want to begin with is just page 1. The whole book is talking about answering Amen and being silent in the shul. There's a case that happened. I was one time running a teen minyan. I started the teen minyan in a little shul here in Surfside, and the program, the teen minyan, is I took all the boys that were in middle school or in high school that wanted to join the program. We did a bunch of prizes and learning each day, and then Shabbat we had a minyan. The minyan on Shabbat morning was preempted by the basis of no talking in the minyan under any circumstances of any kind. I don't want to hear it. I didn't want to care. I don't care. That from the beginning of the tefillah to the end, we're going to pray quickly. We're not going to have any speeches during the tefillah. We're going to start and end quickly. And then when we finish, we can talk, we can joke, we can sing, we can do everything we want to do and learn. And it worked fantastic. What I noticed is that even the boys that I took in that were not even from the religious schools, jumped on the bandwagon right away. It reached almost like 35, 40 boys. And it was great. It was fantastic. I later gave over that restart of this program in Minyan to one of the shuls that I did, and I ended up opening another one, another shul. But the purpose of this Minyan was to train the boys not to speak in shul, and we advertised it this way, and it was very successful. But it came into a lot of political issues. One of the main ones was as follows. We had a guest from Brooklyn, New York, who attended the Minyan one Shabbat morning. The boy was in his late 20s, probably maybe early 30s, but late 20s. He supposedly learns in a Kollel full-time. He doesn't actually work. And he came into the Minyan, and right away from the beginning of the Tefillah, he was talking with his friend. And besides the Tefillah, he had like a Gemara opened in front of him, so he was praying, he was learning, and talking to his friend. So I went to him nicely and I said, you can't talk in this Minyan. I said to him, it was before Baruch Shamar. I said to him, we don't talk in this Minyan. And right away, I got a response back that was it was a little bit of like it was almost like an awkward response back where the individual told me like in a nice way, like he doesn't care. But I was kind of explaining to him, I'm like, this is my minyan. I'm like, you walked into a 9 o'clock minyan on Shabbat morning. It's a teen minyan for teens. You're not a teen. I don't know why, if you learn in Kollel, you're coming to a 9 o'clock minyan in the morning. And why are you learning Gemara while you're in the minyan and talking to your friend here? I said, if you want to do that, go to the main shul. They have a minyan at the same time. You can talk all you want there. They talk in the main shul nonstop and nobody says anything. I warned him a second time. And he continued to talk, and now when he started to talk, he started to look at me like he was doing it in spite. I waited a little more till after the Amidah, and the guy continued to talk during Kriyat HaTorah. I warned him, I said to him, if you talk one more time in this minyan, you're the only one talking, I'm going to point you out, and I'm going to then pick you up and throw you out of the minyan. The guy thought I was joking. He continued to talk even louder. And I was so surprised because he's literally in a room with 35 people, all teens and middle school kids. They're quiet. Here we have a guy learning in a kollel, studying Gemara during the Tefillah and talking to his friend. Besides that, he's over on major halachot. I just couldn't take it. I said, it's worth it for me to get this guy out of here to show the example of what I want from this minyan. I picked him up physically. I threw him out of the minyan. And I told him, don't ever come back here again. And I said to him, I'm not from Florida. I told him I'm from Brooklyn. I'm from a Syrian community. I learned from real Tamidei Chachamim. I said to him, you're ruining this minyan by coming here to talk. I said, if you want to talk, go do it in another minyan. Don't walk around here like you're a Talmid Chacham, learning in a kollel, coming to shul on Shabbat at 9:15 to pray with the teen minyan and to interrupt and to learn Gemara. I said to him, you don't know how to pray. I said to him, you know how to behave. His father-in-law ended up coming to me after. He's like, did you push my son-in-law? I said to him, yes. I said to him, your son-in-law doesn't belong in this minyan. This minyan is for people that want to come pray and not talk. He wants to talk and learn Gemara during Tefillah at 9:15, and he's a Kollel student. Let him go pray in another minyan. I said to him, and if I don't have the support of the shul behind this, you guys can have this minyan and I will open it elsewhere. And that's what I did. And for a week afterwards, I called up about 10 rabbis to tell them the case of what happened. And they all told me what I did was accurate and right, according to halacha. Now, of course, I didn't care because I was not being paid for this job. My goal was to teach L'Shem Shamayim and to teach them the right way. And the boys saw that because the moment that I gave over the minyan to the other shul, half the kids left, the other half continued to talk, and then it continued to dissipate until it became just a regular teen minyan, and it lost all the Kiddusha that we were trying to bring in. And I have no doubt that the Satan did not want this type of minyan, because this is something that can really protect the community. It can really bring a lot of zichuyot and a lot of berachah to the community to have a minyan of kids praying the Shem Shamayim, especially that these boys were learning Mishnayot Ba'al Peh the other 6 days of the week. So this entire book, Mikdash Me'at, is going to reveal to you that you should never let anyone speak in a shul, ever. So we're just going to read just page 1 of it, chapter 1, and then we're going to continue on a daily basis. The obligation to publicly chastise those who converse in the Beit HaMidrash, especially during prayers, Shemona Asre, and Kaddish. Before we continue, the Shulchan Aruch says, who is a person who has no God? It's unbelievable. He asks the question. He says, a person who speaks when the Shaliach Sibur, when the Hazan is repeating the Amidah, he's a person who has no God.
The Chazara
Of Amidah. A person, he says, Kemi she'en lo Eloha. He's like a person who has no God. And he doesn't use that terminology frequently, and it's scary. You mean to tell me a guy is going to talk during the Hazara and he has no God? Yeah, because the entire Hazara, what are you doing? You're literally praising God. If a guy's going to say, this is your God, and we're going to sit there and praise, and all you're doing is talking, then do you really believe that you have that God? Do you really believe this? You know, I say this in a true sense because when it comes to business, people are very legitimate. They're serious. I do things the right way. If somebody was speaking in a conference, in a Walmart meeting, and he was praising the company, and the guy was on his phone talking, hey, what do you think about this? They'll tell him, get out of here. They'll throw him out. So from a board meeting in a business situation, they'll throw a guy out if someone was praising Walmart in the meeting. But when it comes to God, everyone's very relaxed. No, it's okay. It's fine. Well, according to this book, it's not. And according to all the Mefarshim, it's not. I'm going to show you how dangerous this thing is that's being done. It's unbelievable. He says, every Beit Midrash should appoint men in charge of this tax and publicly shame offenders. Again, this is unfiltered Torah. You want filtered Torah? You go to the other places. Okay, refer to the Sefer Vaveh HaAmodim, chapter 10, page 17, paragraph 4. The Rambam writes that one who enters the synagogues and thinks that the act of sitting there is considered a mitzvah, a good deed, and converses unnecessarily as well as committing other transgressions has eradicated his mitzvah. All right, so you got two sources not to do it. Every man and woman should know that when one sits in the synagogue, even not during prayers, it is forbidden to speak superfluous conversations. How much more so must we be careful not to speak of mundane matters during prayers and the reading of the Torah? How much longer will this be our undoing? Every city cannot control this problem and has become almost permitted. Woe to them, woe to their souls. How will their prayers rise to the heavens when it is soiled with all sorts of pain? A prosecutor cannot act as a defendant, meaning by speaking in the shul, you're creating prosecuting angels. How are those going to come out and say, all right, let's save this individual, let's save the people? It doesn't make sense. Therefore, every congregation should appoint men to guard against the speakers and shame such offenders in public. This will glorify Hashem's name in the land, and the public will see this and fear committing the sin. It will muzzle their mouths and prevent them from speaking of mundane matters and superfluous conversation in the synagogue. Okay, that's just page one.
It seems like a tough language to publicly chastise. It's like it must be super, super important. If you're willing to go borderline embarrass someone in shul.
So he states here, there's 200 and...
you know what the Yalkut Yosef, for example, says about this? Like to actually publish, publicly.
So we didn't get to Yalkut Yosef. We didn't get there. We're learning Mikdash Me'at, this book. It's 223 pages, I believe. He has 223 pages of sources. It was translated by Sarah Hoffman Ludmir in memory of Harav Gaon Yitzchak Hoffman. Again, we didn't go. We're going to go into the halacha stuff. We're going to go into this is just page one, guys. I told you it's unfiltered. It's unfiltered, and I mean a lot of the problem is that we see people when we see people speaking shul. Usually the people that are the contributors, they're the people that are paying for things, or sometimes they're the teachers of shul. And sometimes it's unfortunate that when people see the teachers and the wealthiest people speak, and that's not shunned. So they say, okay, if they can do it, I can do it too. That's usually where the source of the issue comes from. It doesn't naturally come from the fact that people, but they see if he's doing it and no one says anything, then I'm going to do it too. The moment that you kind of get this guarded down, and according to them, publicly tell people, you can't just sit and talk here in the shul, it makes certain people feel uncomfortable. But according to this, he goes, that's the only way to do it. He goes, because you see, the same people that told you to come to a shul and pray that will be the tool to help you succeed in prayer are the same people who told you if you put speech that's mundane, it doesn't work. Meaning, I'm all for the guy who says, wow, that's very, very harsh. I agree. But you don't get it. If you want to make pasta and you don't put in there pasta, or you put the pasta in there and instead you took a whole cup of vinegar and you dumped it into the pasta, that pasta is not edible anymore. You can't eat the pasta anymore. I know it's a mashal, and I don't like giving these mashalim, but I'm trying to make you understand something. It's the same people, the chef that told you how to make the pasta, told you if you put that ingredient of that mundane, nonsense, stupidity speech during the tefillah, during the hazarah, during Torah, he goes, that tefillah is not worth anything. You're risking so much in your tefillah. This book is going to prove to you it's not worth anything. Some people say, no, it's worth something. This book will tell you, no.
Even worse.
It's even worse. The book is going to say, you're going to soon see that a person, if he's coming to shul to talk every day, he's better don't come. He said, pray b'yachid. He said, why? Because when you pray b'yachid, you didn't make any avon. There's no sin if a person lived his whole life and prayed b'yachid. There's not a sin to pray b'yachid. Now, if a person doesn't pray with the minyan gives him a lot of beracha. His tefillot have a better chance of being answered quicker. The God is not mo'is b'tfilat tzibur. If 10 people come together, even if they have sins, God says, you guys came together, you guys have achdut, I'm going to listen to your prayer. Speaking ruins everything during the tefillah. So that's why I've always been a big proponent of no speeches and no Torah during the tefillah. Zero. From the beginning of the tefillah till the end, no talking, no Torah, no nothing. Just tefillah, finish aleinu, then do all the talking. So if someone wants to stay, stay. No one has to be held hostage. What happens is a lot of times you do divrei Torah in the middle of the tefillah, coffee chats, going make kiddush. The people get nervous. How long is he going to speak? Some people don't want to hear the speech. It's a whole thing. So when you stick it in the middle of the tefillah, you're kind of forcing people either leave and talk and do things. By making a quick tefillah, not avoiding all speech, you kind of do it quick. And there's no doing a tefillah quickly with no talking is always better than doing a long tefillah with speeches and everything. And then everyone's going to start talking. And here, like I told you, we're trying to say it unfiltered. For people who want it filtered, it's okay. There's plenty of other places that will not tell you these sources, but I feel that there should be a place where the person understands the value of this. Okay, now we're going to go into the Gemara a little bit, and I want to tell you guys what we're doing right now. You don't understand the level. Right now, every Kollel is closed in Miami. Every Beit Midrash is open, but nobody's probably there. We're probably from the handful of people that are actually learning right now at about 11:45 on Erev Yom Kippur, which means we have the zechut of the entire community right now. That's why the Hachamim always say, learn at the time that nobody else is learning, because you carry it on your shoulders the zechut of everybody. So whenever we learn, we always try to learn at times that we corner the market. Just like when you make investments, we want to corner the market. So you can, of course, invest when everyone else is investing, but we're going to invest in times where everyone else is busy, and we'll take the zechut of everybody and carry it on our shoulders. So, okay. So,
I remember if it was your father that told us this, or a rabbi in the church that told us this, that that's the reason why you don't pray nets, because there's less. Think about it as a radio frequency.
That's why I like praying nets on the holidays. Why? Yeah, we're gonna go. We'll go for the Brit Milah after. It's unbelievable, guys. Look at this. We came in the morning to learn. Shai, you don't believe this. We came in the morning here to learn. We got Baruch Hashem. We knocked out a couple of sigulot. We did the sigulav ayeh, the sigulav the rock. We're gonna do. We recorded them, so you can check them with the rocks. Ariel got them. We're gonna go when we're done, guys. We're gonna write it, and we're gonna go to the water. We're gonna throw them in Bay Harbor. We're gonna all go together. Yeah, I'm gonna show you a spot. And then look at this. We were sitting and learning. I didn't have to go anywhere, and suddenly a whole group walks into the shul at 11 o'clock with a baby at a mohel. They do a Brit Milah in front of us. We got a Brit Milah, and now we're sitting and learning Gemara. Acham Ben Sion Musafi and Rabbi Mansour taught the same thing. He said, you don't realize when you do a constant daily learning of things. That's one thing I learned by Rabbi Mansour. First, he knocks and he covers ground. That's why he's such a great teacher. You don't understand. I've watched the rabbi since I'm 12 years old, and I listen to his shiurim all the time. Sometimes I've attended physically, sometimes I listen and I write his notes. What Rabbi Mansour does is that he covers ground. He's a constant learner. And that's what I noticed is his strength, is that he continues to learn Sfarim, record them, and move and on and on and on. And that's an unbelievable strength that we all have to copy. Meaning, we finish one book, we go to the next. We go to another one, we finish the next. And we keep covering ground. You're covering ground. Because over the course of time, I watched of the 20 plus years, what it produced at the Talmid Hacham. And we want to reproduce that. We want to do that same thing over and over. And what he said, unbelievable, Rabbi Mansour, and Cham Ben Musaf, is that when a person learns every day a set thing, like we're doing Chafetz, Haim, Mikdash, Me'at, the Gemara, we're going to do now Shimonat Einayim. He says you're going to see miracles in the learning because God talks to a person through his learning. The Rogachover, Rabbi Yosef Rosen, he lived in the 1930s. The Rogachover Gaon. They say on him that he used to say, when you pray, you're talking to God because you're using your mouth to talk. He goes, but when you learn Torah, it's God speaking to you. What does that mean? He goes, because a lot of times you're going to be learning and different things are going to kind of speak to different people. You might learn and say, oh, wow, he told me you sat with me for 2 hours this morning learning and I picked up on this point, it spoke to me. Then you're going to say, something else spoke to me. And then Shai might say another thing that spoke to him. And what ends up happening here is that Hashem is talking to you through the Torah. Meaning you observed something and you're also going to pick up on like similarities. You'll notice how like suddenly when we're learning, we had a Brit Milah, we learned in the learning, it's a Brit Milah also. And suddenly you learn another thing and you're going to see the kesher between the two. And that was the Rugged Shavar Gaon was one of the sources of it. He says that when you're learning Torah, God is speaking to you. But when does this work? Not when you randomly just come to a shul and open a book to learn. When you are learning a constant thing on a daily basis. You have to keep the chut shel chesed, that little string of the chesed has to carry itself day in, day out. When you do it, then you have the blessing that God is going to speak to you through your learning. We're learning Masechet Megillah, Be'iyun. We are now almost 10 days in, and we're only on the first page. Why? Because we're trying to understand it in depth. We reviewed yesterday the Gemara. Let's go quickly, and then we'll review and then continue on. So the Gemara was discussing in the Mishnah 5 days that you could read the Megillah. Yud Aleph, Yud Bet, Yud Gimel, Yud Dalet, Tet Vav. Those are 5 days you could read the Megillah. The Mishnah asked a very good question. How do I know it's 5 days? Before I moved into this Mishnah, I knew that Purim fell out on 2 days, Yud Dalet and Tet Vav. So I knew that you can read it on Shushan Purim, Tet Vav, and Yud Dalet. But I didn't know on the other days. So the Gemara says that Anshe Knesset HaGedolah did it, and they used a few Pesukim. One word was Bizmanehim, and they used Bizman Nam, Bizmanehim. Those were plural words. So it was 2 days, and 2 days is 4. And the Gemara had a question. If you only had 4 days, then how does the Mishnah tell me 5? So came Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzchak, and he said, you don't have the 4 days is good, but you include 11 and 12, not 13 and 14 or 15. Why not 13? Because 13 was the day of the battle. That's the Ta'anit Esther. In Ta'anit Esther, we don't fast Ta'anit Esther because she fasted Ta'anit Esther, because she really fasted on Pesach for 3 days, 72 hours. Sumu alai shloshet yamim. She said 3 days. And so what we do is we're fasting on the day that they went to battle, because when Bnei Yisrael used to go to battle, they used to fast on that day. They wouldn't eat on that day. For Rahamim and for asking prayers, you see that also in the Navi. During the battle, they did not eat until nightfall. In Tzom, until nightfall. Nope. Yoshua and Yonatan. No, the day of the battle, they were fighting, they would fast, and they were very victorious when they would do it. So that was what they did. And so the reason why we fast on Yud Gimel, we call it Ta'anit Esther. Not that was the Ta'anit that she did, but rather that was the day that we fasted when we went to battle, and so we're reliving that. Now, it seems from this, I don't have the source of it yet, but they could have fasted also on Yud Dalet and Tet Vav, because they fought also on those days. At the original year, they might have fasted those days also because they were in the battle. Now, the difference between also is that they used to fast from the morning till the evening. When Ta'anit Esther came, and she said, Sumu alai shloshet yamim, she meant 72 consecutive hours of not eating morning and night. So when she fasted, Ta'anit Esther on Purim, she did a 72-hour fast, not eating at all 72 hours. When they would go to battle, they would eat at night and not during the daytime. From Alot, from the beginning until Tset or Shki'ah, that they would do it.
So you referred to it, said that that's not only the medal, that's the main, that's the cloud of the actual.
Zman Kehila Lakol.
Exactly, that was the.
Very good. So you said, if that's the case, then it's good. The 5 days work out because you brought me a word that told me plural days on 2 and plural days on 2, and I have the Yud Gimel. Then comes Then comes the Rav Shmuel bar Nachmani. Rav Shmuel bar Nachmani says, why did you use that word bizmanehim, which means multiple times? You could use another pasuk that says, Kayamim asher nachu b'hem haYehudim, like the days that the Jews rested. Yamim kayamim, meaning yamim is plural. The minimum of a plurality is 2. So he says, Yamim kayamim, 2 and 2 is 4. And he says, if you use that, then you could add 11 and 12 and you're all set. You have all the 5 days. So the Gemara asks, maybe you should say it should be 16, 17. They say, no, it says in the Pasuk, Velo Ya'avor, in the Pasuk in the Megillah, which means you can't go past the 15th day. Okay, so comes Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak, and he says, Yud Gimel Zman Keilah Lakol, 13 is good. So it seems that Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani, who's using a different Pasuk, agrees that Yud Dalet and Tet Vav is already accepted. Yud Gimel is Zman Keilah Lakol, and then you have 2 more days that he needs, that he takes the word Kayamim. Kayamim means multiple days. Kayamim Yamin. Okay. So then the Gemara asks a question. Shai, do you understand the opinions? Because if you don't, you're getting it. Okay. It says here, Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani, Mai ta'ama lo amar mi bizmanehim. So they ask a question on Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani. This Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani said, I want you to use the word kayamim. Kayamim means like the days, 2 days. So he says, the Gemara asks on him, why did he not use the word bizmanehim? That was working just fine before he came in. Why did you give me another word? So they say, zmanam, zmanehem lo mashmaleh. He didn't accept that hidush. And Rav Shemen bar Abba, my tama lo amar kayamim. Now they went back to the original statement of Rav Shemen bar Abba amar Rabbi Yochanan. They said, why did he not use kayamim? And the Gemara answers in his name, because the rabbi didn't answer directly. The Gemara answered in his name, Amar lach ahu ledarotu dichtiv. You can't use that because it says kayamim asher nachu b'hem haYehudim, which was really telling you, the Megillah was saying that I want you to celebrate these days in the future just like you did the days in the yesteryear, in the past. That's what was the purpose. So you're going to tell me the pasuk that says that you have to do it for all the generations, you want to use it for the source of the days, doesn't work. The Gemara didn't like that. Rashi said you can't use that twice. You can't use it twice. Let's see if we could see it over here in the Gemara. Yamim kayamim le'el minei ketiv yudal v'tetvav yismechu uchtiv kayamim asher nachu b'hem haYehudim v'hava le'mechtav yamim asher nachu demashma hem hayamim asher nachu mai kayamim le'rabot shanim acharot kedugmatan. So he says here that the word kayamim is talking about future years that they're going to read it, not the actual days. The rotu dechtiv lehachi shayach lishna dikra kayamim kelomar yasu ledorot, that they're going to do these days for the generation Yudal v'Tetvav. Kasher haya bimehanes, just like it was in the days of the miracle. Yamim asher nachu b'hem. Hilkach lo ika lerabuye mehacha shanim acharim. Because you can't use it for the days of the future and for those days. So Rashi says the Gemara didn't accept that. Now the Gemara is going to continue. Amar Rabba bar Hana Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, new statement. Zu divrei Rabbi Akiva setima'a.
Is this a 4th statement?
So this is now the Gemara is discussing, going back to the Mishnah, of reading it before the 14th. We know already the Megillah says you can read the 14th and the 15th. How did you get 11, 12, and 13? So the Gemara says Amar Rabba bar Hana Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Zu divrei Rabbi Akiva setima'a. It says this Mishnah is an unanimous one of Rabbi Akiva. What does that mean? First, if you look at Rashi tells us Seti Ma'a. Look at that inside, Shai, Seti Ma'a. You know how to read this, Rashi? Read it. On Seti Ma'a, Setim Ta'a. You see that? See that one?
Rashi.
Read that, Rashi. No. So in this page, both sides are Rashi. We're going to get to Tosafot. This Gemara. Yeah, it has a lot of Rashis on it. So both sides are Rashi. So yeah. Yeah. Stop. Okay. Harbe stam Mishnah stam Rabbi shehem divrei Rabbi Akiva. Okay, a regular Mishnah is Rabbi Akiva.
When you have a Mishnah Stam, it's usually...
Yeah, so we're going to get to Sitima. Kola Situmim Talmidav Hayu. All of the Situmim, the things that don't have names on them when they're printed, are all the students of Rabbi Akiva. They say Kullehu de Rabbi Akiva, meaning everything comes from Rabbi Akiva. All the Torah we have today is all stem from him and his students, his 5 students. Yeah, Kedamar beSanhedrin, like it says in Sanhedrin, Stam Mishnah Rabbi Meir. If you see Mishnah and there's no name who said it, it's Rabbi Meir, Baal Hanes. Stam Tosefta is Rabbi Nehemiah. Stam Sifra is Rabbi Yehuda. V'Kullehu Setimae Aliba de Rabbi Akiva. Everything goes back to Rabbi Akiva. What's interesting is that the 5 students of Rabbi Akiva all disagreed for the most part with each other, and they all had the same rabbi. I think there's a big lesson in that just because you have the same rabbi and you learn from the same person, you can deduce your own learning that can be differentiated from another student of the same rabbi. Just, the Arizal had over 10 students, and they all came out with different conclusions on different things in Kavanot and Tefillot. Doesn't mean that they're all wrong. They all had different ways to understand it. If we could see it from the students of Rabbi Akiva, that sometimes they even argue with Rabbi Akiva, his own students. Imagine that. There's a lesson to that learning is about learning, questioning, going back, questioning again. What's the whole purpose of this Gemara? If they wanted us just to know the bottom line, they could have just told us the Mishnah, halacha, halacha, halacha. The whole purpose of this is to tweak your mind into thinking and learning. That's the difference. This is the difference. What I've understood of limud Torah and amelut b'Torah. Limud Torah would be literally reading it, understanding it, and moving on. Amelut b'Torah is saying, where did he get that statement from? Why did he make that statement? What was his background? What's the depth to the statement? Are there other lessons that are going to be learned here? And just to go deeper and deeper and deeper, because this learning can go to Shiv'im Panim La Torah. And according to Rabbi Mansour, it's not really Shiv'im Panim La Torah. It's really Shivim Panim La Torah times 600,000 men. So what that means is that out of the 600,000 men that left Egypt, every single one of them had another 70 Shivim Panim La Torah. And if you do that, you get 42 million different interpretations. That means for every single thing in the Torah, there are 42 million different interpretations of the Shivim Panim La Torah. Now that's only the Shivim Panim. There's also Anfehim. Anfehim means are the branches. So out of the 42 million, if each one of them has a branch of 10, you get 420 million Hidushim and reasons on every one word of the Torah.
Which are all correct.
And they're all correct and accurate with God's stamp of approval. Just to show you, it's unbelievable. And the Arizal used to say, I believe on the Ramak, Rabbi Moshe al-Sheikh, on Rabbi Moshe al-Sheikh, that his Perush, Rabbi Moshe al-Sheikh, is one of the 70 Panim Torah, one of the Shivim Panim from Moshe Rabbeinu Har Sinai. He read it now. I read from time to time of the al-Sheikh. It's a hard Perush. You're not going to find it in the Mikraot Kedolot. It's not in there. He didn't make it to the Mikraot Kedolot that they're printing. He just has his own separate book. It's a tough one. You read it, you spend hours reading his Hidushim, but you're going into one of the 70 Shivim Panim Torah. So there's something there. אך קשה בעיניי לפרש כן שמצינו בכמה מקומות בשם רבי עקיבא, בשם ברבי יוסי, סתימאי, רבי מנחם בר רבי יוסי, סתימאי לכמה בפרק בני העיר. So this Rashi is really telling you like some rules that the Stam Mishnah is this, Stam Sifra is this, all the basis of it. So it says on this Mishnah that this is a Mishnah from Rabbi Akiva. And the Darish Zman, Zmanam, Zmanehem. Why? Rabbi Akiva used that Zman, Zmanam, Zmanehem. That's how he taught. But Aval Chachamim Omrim En Korin Ota Ela Bizmana. But the Chachamim, they said you only read it Bizmana. What's a Bizmana? That's on the only 2 days that are in the Megillah, which is 14 and 15. As a side note, today we read only on the 14 and the 15 for the most part.
Just to quickly recap on that. So according to Rabbi Akiva, if we follow that opinion, we'd be able to read the Megillah on more than 2 days.
More than 2 days, according to Rabbi Akiva. But what Rabbi Bar Hanan is saying, Amar Rabbi Hanan is saying, that Mishnah is Rabbi Akiva, Zman, Zmanam, Zmanehem. He goes, but Chachamim, they only read it on 2 days.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Metivi, so now Metivi is they're bringing an objection right now. On who? On Rabbi Yohanan, because Rabbi Bar Hanan brought his statement to Rabbi Yochanan. What's interesting is, did Rabbi Yochanan make another statement?
Yeah,
He started. Rav Shemin bar Abba Amar Rabbi Yochanan. What was Rav Shemin bar Abba Amar Rabbi Yochanan? Let's go to Rav Shemin.
He was the one that brought the concept of Zman Zmanim Zmanim.
He brought the foundation of it.
Yeah.
So they said, hold on a minute. Rabba bar Hana, you're telling me in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that this is Rabbi Akiva of Zman Zmanam Zmanahim. So now the Gemara and the Hachamim won't say 14 and 15. So now we have a question on Rabbi Yochanan. You mean you have the same Rabbi Yochanan saying these two? Now, Rabbi Yochanan sourced out two things. Rav Shemin bar Abba, who said Zman Zmanam Zmanahim. That statement of Rav Shemin came from the Rabbi Yochanan. It carried from Rabbi Yochanan. The statement that the Mishnah is from Rabbi Akiva, also learning the Zman Zmanam Zmanahim, is also Rabbi Yochanan. So the Gemara has a question. Metivi. They're raising an objection now. Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Now this is Metivi is going to bring you now a Braita. Okay? So whenever you see Metivi, you're going to see right after a Braita. It says Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Ematai bizman shehashanim kitiknan v'Yisrael shirorin al admatan aval bazeman hazeh ho'il u'mistakelin ba en korin ota ela bizmana. Okay, so now the Gemara brings a Braita that adds a little star to the statement of the Mishnah. It says it's 5 days. I agree to everything in the Mishnah, but there's one Braita that you missed. Now, what's a Braita? A Braita is a Mishnah that didn't get into the Mishnayot. Why didn't it get into the Mishnayot? Because Rabbi Yehuda Nasi used certain Midrashim to put together the Mishnayot. Not all the Batei Midrash were included. Some were not included advertently, and some inadvertently. So some were included because he didn't want to include them for some reason or another, and some were just he didn't know about. So there were other Mishnayot that were hovering in other Batei Midrash that didn't make it to the actual Mishnayot that were redacted by Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. I mentioned to you before that we only have what's called Zman Nakat. Zera'im, Mo'ed, Nezikin, Nashim, Kedashim, Taharot. Those are six Sedarim that produce Mishnayot, and then we have Gemariot that come from those Mishnayot. That's 6. There were 700. That means we're missing, as at least 700. That means we're missing 694 Sedarim with Mishnayot. So if someone has a question, why is the Braita not the Mishnah? You can ask him what happened to the 694. Also, Sedarim, they're gone. That's one of the reasons why a person mourns on the Sefirat HaOmed and does not cut his beard for 30 days, over 30 days, 34 days. I told you guys, because if someone, lo alenu's father or mother passes away, he only doesn't shave for 30 days. So why suddenly for the students of Rabbi Akiva, who nobody here met and nobody here knew and no one knew anything about them, do they grow for 34 days? What was the whole custom of this? Is we lost all the Torah. And what happened was when we lost that Torah of the 12,000 pairs of students, is that we never got it back. You know, and there's a huge lesson in this, a huge lesson, because Rabbi Akiva had a good reason to retire. Rabbi Akiva, until age 40, didn't learn any Torah. From age 40 to 80, he studied Torah. From 80 to 120, he taught. Imagine reaching at least 80 years old, teaching, gathering 12,000 pairs of students, and then suddenly, in the course of a little over a month, the entire student population is annihilated. Lo alenu lo takum pa'amayim sara. Imagine such a thing happens. Okay? It's a crazy thing. A person today would probably say, okay, this must mean I did something wrong, and God doesn't want me to do this. God must want me to become a different profession. That's what Rabbi Akiva could have said. He could have said, listen, if there's any proof that in the heavens they don't want me doing this, they took out his entire product. All of his students was his product. And everything was gone. And Rabbi Akiva had to look inward and had to make a decision and say, no, God wants me to do this. This is a test, and I'm going to continue going. And it's a great lesson for life, because sometimes we make the false assumption that outwardly events is God speaking to us in the negative. Every outwardly event is God speaking to you. There's nothing that will happen that you'll know about, that you'll find out, that is just a random occurrence. Everything is God speaking to you, and speaking to you in a positive way, not a negative way. Rabbi Akiva could have said, all right, listen, they all died, I'm done. And by the way, You can go out to the Beit Din of Shamayim and say, what do you want? You didn't leave me even one student. If I did something right, leave me one. You didn't leave me one. But he said no. He went back, he took another 5, he retrained them, put in them a ton of ahavat chinam, no sinat chinam, made sure they loved each other. And from those 5 is the entire basis of the Torah. There's nothing that we have today, not one sefer, that does not stem from those 5 students. And it's a lesson of learning. It's a lesson of teaching, having students, of growing and learning, that just because something didn't work out in the way that you anticipated, and you did everything right, you didn't do anything wrong, Rabbi Akiva didn't do anything wrong, did everything perfect. It doesn't mean that God doesn't want you to do it. Guys could say, okay, you know what, I wanted to go to shul this morning, the car didn't start. Okay, then the car finally started, then there's a flat tire. And then the thing is another issue. And every time there was a hurdle. So you must say, God's probably telling me not to do this. Or he could say, no, that's the Yetzer Hara, the Satan, was testing me. And he's testing me in a place that he knows that's going to irk me. Because the Satan doesn't test you in a place that doesn't irk you. He only bothers you in a place that he knows is going to bother you. You understand? And this is an ikad of it. So here we have a statement. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Imatai. Bizman. So what does Rabbi Yehuda say? Rabbi Yehuda says, they're objecting now to Rabbi Yohanan, that he says the only time Bizman Shashlim Kitiknam, when the years are actually properly put together by Beit Din, and Israel Shurim al Admatan, and Am Yisrael are residing in their nation, then it's okay. Aval Bazman Azeh, in this time, Ho'il umistakelim ba en korin ota ela bizmana. Okay, when the statement was made, it seems that they were not on Admatam. Which means, when was the statement made of Rabbi Yehuda, this Mishnah? They were not on Admatam.
So after
That was after the Chorban Bayit Sheni.
Yeah.
Okay, so it seems so far that what it's saying here is that when the years are in this right order, and Israel's on their land, we have our land like we have had since 1948. We didn't have it from the year about 70 or 72 from the Chorban Bayit until the year 1948. For all those years, we didn't have it. They only read on 14 and 15. In Kunta Ela Bizmana, those days. But when we are in Israel and we have the Beit Din and everything, it seems that they probably could read 11, 12, and 13. That's what it seems. Can you read the note on number 40? Let's read 40.
During the temple era, the years and months were scheduled by the main Beit Din, seated in Jerusalem. The Beit Din decided which years were to be leap years. It also declared the beginnings of the months based upon sightings of the new moon. The populace was informed of these decisions by messengers who went from Beit Din to all parts of Israel. For example, once the Beit Din had declared the beginning of the month of Nisan, messengers were sent to relay this information. These messengers reached even the most remote regions of the country by the 15th of Nisan, which is the first day of Pesach. Thus, the entire population was informed in time of the exact date to observe Pesach.
Yep, it's very interesting. And what's interesting also, how they used to do the Chodesh is that someone had to see the moon, and then they would come to the rabbis in the Beit Din, and the rabbis would test them. It says, I think Rabban Gamliel used to have on his wall drawings of the moons. So he would actually draw out on the wall, and he would test the people that came in. He said, you saw the moon? He said, which moon did you see? Can you point it out on the wall? And then he would go out. Our rabbis were all astronomers and astrologers. So when someone came in to try to fool them, they fooled the guy before he fooled them. And came in the guy, and he would tell him, I saw that moon. He said, okay. He said, then can you go outside and tell me in the sky where the moon was located? See, not only did he have to identify the moon he saw, he would tell him, where in the sky did you see it? He would tell him, I saw it on there towards the east. He said, okay, fine. He said, it's not untruthful. He said, why? Because the moon can't be there. The moon has to be in that location and has to be this size. He's no good. Next one. And they would dismiss them. Now, when they found one that actually was a good ed, they were good edim, what they did is, how would they notify? They would go to the mountaintops. We'll learn about this later. And they would light fires on the mountaintops. So they knew, okay, Rosh Chodesh. And then it would carry itself from one mountaintop, they would light to the other mountaintop. And suddenly, you'd see, by the day of Rosh Chodesh, flames and smoke going up from the mountaintops. So everyone would be able to signal to each other, it's Rosh Chodesh, Rosh Chodesh, Rosh Chodesh. Ya'alev yavo, Ya'alev yavo, Ya'alev yavo. You understand? That was their way of communicating before, communications, telecommunications, phones. And by the way, it worked. And it works great. And it worked, and there was never any issues. Okay, let's continue a little bit more. Rabbi Yehuda aliba deman. So the Gemara now asks a question. Rabbi Yehuda, who made the statement of this braita, aliba deman. What's aliba deman? Who are you following? Who is the source? Remember, I told you aliba de Rabbi Akiva, which means they all follow the school of Rabbi Akiva. Aliba deman. He said, Rabbi Yehuda, you just give me a braita that told me we can only read it on 14 and 15 when they're on their, unless they're on their land. He said, so aliba deman. How did you know that, Rabbi Yehuda? He says, Ilema aliba de Rabbi Akiva. If you're going to tell me, Rabbi Yehuda, that you follow Rabbi Akiva, that he's your rabbi, it can't be. Why can't it be? Because Rabbi Akiva said you could read it. Zaman, Zmanan, Zmanim, 11, 12, 13. And Rabbi Yehuda, you gave me a braita that said you can only read 14 and 15 unless you're Israel al Batam. So it can't be. If you're going to say that he followed, because even today, Rabbi Akiva will tell you read 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So why? It can't be that. Okay, let's turn. Ela lav aliba de Rabbanan. So it must be that Rabbi Yehuda, he followed the Chachamim who said you only read it on 14, 15. Ubizman shehashanim kitiknan. And when the years are put together properly, the calendar, Israel shurin al matan, and Israel is on their land, miha kerinan, we may read it, tiyufta de Rabbi Yochanan tiyufta. So this is a refutation to Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, let's review this part. Okay, so let's review it again. Let's go back, and we're going to read the notes on it. So it says, it asks a question, Rabbi Yehuda aliba deman. Rabbi Yehuda, how did you know this braita that you can only read it when Israel is on their land and when you have the calendar set? Where did you get this? What was your source? Don't tell me it's Rabbi Akiva, because Rabbi Akiva holds that you could read it 11, 12, 13 even Bazeman Hazeh. So rather, you must follow the Chachamim, because that's the only other opinion that I've had presented to me thus far. I've had two opinions. I have the Chachamim, who say you can read 14, 15, and I have Rabbi Akiva, the Stam Mishnah, Rabbi Meir. I have those two. There's only two options, so I'm only going to choose from the options I have. So it says it must be the Rabbanan ubizman she'ashanim kitiknan Yisrael shanim alatan miha kerinan, that when they are fixed properly and they're in their land, then we may in fact read it earlier than the 14th, which means Rabbi Yehuda agreed. And so did the Chachamim, that when Israel has territorial land and they have the calendar properly, everyone agrees that you read on all the days. Just when you don't, you read 14, 15. Rabbi Akiva says, no, I would read it also on the other days. I want you to read the notes under 43 and 44.
Who lived before Rabbi Akiva?
Okay, what do you mean? First, go 43. So who was talking about that? The Chachamim.
Yeah.
Meaning Rabbi Akiva, they lived before the Chachamim. Okay, go.
Rabbi Yehuda remarks are apparently addressed to a statement made by either Rabbi Akiva or the rabbis who granted permission to villagers to read before the 14th. Rabbi Yehuda teaches that the ruling was indeed only intended only for the temple era. Since, as the Gemara concludes, it is the rabbis whose statement Rabbi Yehuda qualifies, they must have lived in the temple era, or otherwise the permission they grant would have no application in their own times.
Okay, excellent. And maybe 44, evidently,
the Braita holds of the derivation from Zmanim, their times, but rules that at least under certain circumstances, the Megillah may be read before the 14th.
Yeah.
Since this Braita follows the opinion of the sages, it contradicts Rabbi Yochanan's statement, which implies that the derivation from Zmanim, their times, is true only according to Rabbi Akiva, but is rejected by the sages.
Okay, so what does it mean tiyufta, Rabbi Yochanan tiyufta? That's a refutation. Because who gave Rabbi Yochanan was the founder of the statement of Rav Shemin bar Abba, who said that you can read it zman, zmanam, zmanehim. So Rav Shemin bar Abba said, I learned from Rabbi Yochanan. Okay? I learned that. And we learned later that Rabbi Bar Hana tells us in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that the Mishnah is Sittim Ta'a of Rabbi Akiva, and that the Chachamim only read it on their days. Okay? Now they have a question, because we have a Braita from Rabbi Yehuda that says that only when they're on their land and when they have the calendar set can they read earlier. Okay, so the question is on Rabbi Yehuda's Braita. How do you know this? If it's where's your source? Is it Rabbi Akiva? No, it can't be Rabbi Akiva because Rabbi Akiva would have allowed that even today. So it must be according to the Chachamim. So how is it a tiyufta? It's a refutation of Rabbi Yohanan, because this is telling me that Rab Shimon bar Abba statement of Rabbi Yohanan zmanam doesn't work here. You got it so far?
Yeah.
You're getting it so far. Let's.
Up until now, basically, we're saying that he cannot be according to Rabbi Akiva because of the days, even in today's time. That's evidently clear. But now it's even fit with the Chachamim opinion because of the statement he just brought about.
It seems that according to the Chachamim, that according to everybody, when Israel is on their land and they have the calendar set, everybody reads 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. But when they don't, it's 14 and 15. And Rashi is telling us also that the Chachamim must have predated Rabbi Akiva. But one of the klalim of the Talmud is Rabbi Akiva techaverav, to the Chachamim, it's always halacha the Chachamim. Always like that. But if it's Rabbi Akiva versus another rabbi, one rabbi to another, halacha is always like Rabbi Akiva. That was from I remember that from the Klalei Talmud, which we're going to do in the coming weeks. We're going to bring it in, which gives us like directions when you're learning Gemara, how to understand the foundation of it. Okay, we'll end this today and we'll continue. Beli neder, tomorrow's Yom Kippur. So Beli neder, we will continue tomorrow night. Beli neder, I want to learn a little bit. If you guys want to come out, we'll do a little limud. And then Be'ezat Hashem, we'll continue on Tuesday morning. Regular. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.